Uncle Doug.
Hello.
I don't know if you know this, but I don't know if our listeners know this, but the three of us are all former saints.
That's right.
Yeah. We grew up in a church that anointed each of us a saint. Just pretty much everybody gets to be one.
Self-beatified.
That's right. Latter day.
Auto-beatification, which I don't think it should be a thing.
It sounds sexy, though.
Yeah.
I'm into it.
It took me so long as a kid to understand that the latter day did not refer to ladders.
That's what I thought, too. It's like Jacob's ladder. We climb up to heaven. I don't know. Stupid.
Yeah.
It's a stupid name for a stupid church.
Brevity is not their thing.
No.
As
we've explored.
As my segment points out.
Well, I can talk a little about saintliness, fellas.
I would like it.
Yeah. So, as you guys know, and our listeners may know, I work over to the movie business, as we say here in Utah.
You're one of them Hollywood elites.
I'm a Hollywood liberal, and I guess an honorary Jew. Would I be? Because
well, you're definitely a pedophile. I don't know if that makes you. Does that make you a Jew?
But it's like the Native Americans. We use the whole child.
Right.
Then we eat it and consume the adrenochrome. So,
yeah.
I work in the movie business, and I think I've mentioned once or twice before on the show that due to my hypersensitivity as a child and the quirk of being raised by panic-driven cultists, I actually worked on a horror movie before I'd seen one, with the exception of having watched the first 5 minutes of The Exorcist at my friend Brett's house before I ran home, through the dark and terror. And
right.
Yes, I'm a white guy from Salt Lake. Of course, I had a friend named Brett. I had loads of them.
Right. I
really couldn't handle horror movies at all. Of course, now during the pandemic, I think my husband and I are up to like watching 3 a week. But this is now, that was then. So anyway, when I was like 20, my friend wanted to go see Hellbound, Hellraiser 2. And I felt like I had enough hair on my chest to handle a big boy scary movie. I was wrong.
Wrong.
It's kind of hilariously cheese. Like, you should look up the trailer. It's so cheese, but it fucked me right up back then. There's a scene where a fully skinless person emerges from hell through a blood-soaked mattress. I was not okay seeing that. And it's images like that have convinced good Christian parents not to let their young children watch films with such disturbingly graphic imagery of gore and human suffering.
Well, not that kind of film.
And if they're Catholic, their parents may protect them from such imagery on Saturday night, so when they confront it in church on Sunday morning, its nightmarish punch is unspoiled by Hollywood's crass commercial blasphemery.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, they'll let them watch snuff films about Jesus all day damn long. But.
Or, just, Marvel movies where shit's blowing up all over the place. So,
right.
Yea, verily, as I was researching good St. Peter the Martyr of Verona a few weeks back, he of serene countenance despite having a huge machete embedded in his skull, I was reminded of the ghastly scene from Hellbound, Hellraiser 2, when I saw images of one of Peter's saintly colleagues, that being Saint Bartholomew the Apostle.
Ooh.
Now, we have many times on the show discussed Catholicism's unique obsession with the morbid, the grisly, the ghastly, and the bloody. Its imagery and liturgy are like the elevator doors in The Shining, cascades of blood and horrendous images and descriptions of torture and sadism that make anything Clive Barker ever dreamed up seem like child's play. Their obsession with the gruesome...
Including the movie Child's Play.
I did a little double entendre there. How about? But that wasn't Clive Barker, of course. But their obsession with the gruesome murder of the unkillable demigod they worship and their claim to consume his actual blood and body every week. Yeah. If you stand back and forget how normalized the Catholic religion is in society and culture for a second, take another look at that, it's pretty fucking shocking practice to me. But out of all that comes the idea that only through suffering can one come to know God. Check out episode 64 about Mother Teresa to see how that's worked out for people. And so those who suffered greatly in the defense of the faith came so very close to God that's in that suffering that they are rewarded with a semi-godhood after death themselves, that being sainthood.
Yoo-hoo!
And the saints are confirmation for young parishioners of the truth of the faith. Look, Look how they suffered without ever renouncing their faith. How could they have suffered so for a lie? Look at these gruesome pictures and statues and try to deny the truth for which they died. Here, have a drink of a 2,000-year-old Jew's blood. See? Feel better now? Until you suffer as they do, what right have you to question the faith? So, that brings us to Bartholomew the Apostle. We first meet Bartholomew as one of Jesus' 12 apostles in Matthew, Mark, and Luke in the New Testament, and then we either meet him by another name or his replacement without explanation in the Gospel of John as Nathaniel. We've talked a bit before on the show about how the Gospels themselves do not tend to jive up very much. Some scholars say there were two different people. Some say they are different names for the same person, and the Catholic Encyclopedia helpfully says they are the same person whose first name was Nathaniel and last name was Bartholomew. So just shut up, okay?
Let's not forget that there is precedent in that damn book for all the things, including the same person, including people being two people, people being the same person with different names, and even, people just changing their names midway through the thing. Like there's it's all possible.
Yeah, like just
anything, all is possible with the Lord.
I can't remember which episode it was, but when Doug did like the four nativities, and they're four totally different stories.
Yeah.
Right. It's bananas, and it's no different with people, as I will demonstrate. So just remember things like this name incoherence about one of Jesus's 12 best friends when you hear people saying there is 100% solid proof of the existence of the historical Jesus. They can't even agree on the facts of the 12 people who they claim were eyewitnesses to his life.
Right.
And there's going to be more of that.
If you want to gotcha, just say name the 12 apostles.
Yeah.
And then when they name Nathan, say, what about Bartholomew?
And they'll go, bleh. So Bartholomew seemed to be sort of a middling apostle, solid on defense, but never really put any points on the board. The most notable thing from his time with Jesus seems to be his friendship with the apostle Philip. I think we all agree friendship is important, so good job, Philip and Bartholomew. But it isn't until after Jesus' big magic trick of pretending to die and flying away to heaven, or as Dan said, to Guatemala, that Bartholomew's story really gets going. There are claims that after the crucifixion, which, remember, I always like to point this out, included a bunch of dead elders rising from their graves and wandering around Jerusalem, an odd little detail that nobody ever seems to want to explain from the pulpit, Bartholomew became, like his resurrected master, a wandering evangelist. At least a couple sources claim he preached the gospel in India, an impressive distance for him to have traveled, but most other scholars dispute this as highly unlikely. What seems fairly certain is that someone named Bartholomew did bring the gospel north and east to Armenia. Bartholomew traveled there in the mid-1st century with another apostle, Jude, or was it Thaddeus, or was it Jude of James, or Jude Thaddeus, or Judas Thaddeus, or maybe just Lebbeus. Again, the historicity of Jesus hits an iceberg pretty quickly when you start looking into the apostles. Anyway, these two, or 8, or whoever they were, made it to the wild mountains of Armenia, where Bartholomew preached his gospel of Jesus. Now, Armenia is a very special place in the hearts of me and Uncle Doug, right? Having traveled there some time ago under some pretty whacked out circumstances, only to be treated with such an embarrassing level of hospitality, we felt like they'd mistaken us for rock stars.
Yeah, for sure.
It's a super cool, fiercely independent place with a cuisine I would describe as hostile. But they do claim to be among the oldest.
I imagine it to be largely goat-based. I'm not sure why.
It's. I'm sure Armenian listeners are going to punch me in the face for this, but it was kind of frightening. And again, we were pretty young guys, so we didn't have a lot of life experience.
And to be fair, they were under the yoke of the Soviet Union and at war with Azerbaijan, so probably not their best foot forward that day.
Yeah, but it was a little frightening. Anyway. They do claim to be among the oldest Christian societies, having become so in the 1st century CE. And they credit Saint Bartholomew and Saint Thaddeus, or whoever it was, for that, as they are the patron saints of the Armenian Apostolic Church. So good job, Thaddeus and Bartholomew. Except, and this is where the blood comes in, the Zoroastrian Armenians of the 1st century didn't yet hold this weirdo, wandering Jewish preacher with the high regard their modern cousins do. Oh my no. It seems the two managed somehow to convert Polybius, the king of Armenia, to their new Jewish messianic religion. The king's brother, Astyages, was having none of it. Never mind that there is no record of a king named Polybius in Armenia. Facts be damned. So Astyages made quite a show of dispatching Bartholomew in a city nobody can find called Albanopolis. The best guess is that maybe if it existed, its ruins might be in Azerbaijan. He was either crucified upside down in the fashion of St. Peter or beheaded. Either method has been proven effective for being the gateway to sainthood.
Right.
But it's what happened before that for which poor Bartholomew and or maybe Nathaniel is known today, and that is that he was skinned alive. Flayed, as they say in the parlance of the time.
Sure.
And this, dear listeners, is where I met poor Bartholomew in all his hellbound, Hellraiser 2 glory when I was poking around for images of St. Peter the Martyr. There is an incredible sculpture of him in the Milan Cathedral, sculpted by Marco Diagrate. It's a masterpiece of Renaissance anatomical understanding and sculptural drapery. Anatomy, because of the amazing denuded fleshiness the artist managed to capture in stone, and drapery, because Bartholomew is wearing his flaccid, removed skin draped around his meat like a toga.
Oh my God!
It is an extraordinary, hellacious, fleshy nightmare rendered in marble.
What's it
Did
called,
he look?
Mark?
It's the Saint Bartholomew the Apostle in the Milan Cathedral. You should.
Did he look in the mirror and say, "I'd fuck me"? Would you fuck me?
And apparently, this sculptor was a student of Michelangelo.
Oh my God!
So it's really fantastic
Okay, I
work.
just looked it up. It's horrific. It's crazy and
It's amazing. It's kind of beautiful. So while Diagrate's figure might be the pinnacle of artistic renderings of the skinned Bartholomew, it is far from the only one. Michelangelo included him on the Sistine Chapel ceiling, kneeling on a cloud and holding his drooping skin in one hand.
Yeah.
It's believed the twisted face of the skin is actually Michelangelo's self-portrait, interestingly enough.
Oh my God!
Yeah, it's kind of cool.
That's a hell of a way to portrait yourself.
Yeah, well, he hated the job, right? He wasn't a painter. He hated the job,
Right.
But the Pope made him do it. So maybe that was that grimaced face is his commentary on the job. In the Church of San Luriano in Colombia, a painting shows Bartholomew tied to iron hoops on a table, the top half of his skin hanging over his lower anatomy as blood gushes in lifelike detail. Matteo de Giovanni's 1418 painting in the Museum of Fine Arts in Budapest shows a blazing red Bartholomew wearing his skin like a model with a fur stole posing on the runway. In Wame Huguet's 15th century altarpiece, a mildly irritated Bartholomew stands tied to a standing rack as two men exert themselves, yanking the skin of his chest and back downward like they're trying to remove a wetsuit. Even modern artists like the bad boy of the British modern art scene, Damien Hirst, have been inspired by the gruesome but fascinating tableau of Bartholomew's martyrdom. Hirst's sculpture, Exquisite Pain, is both alarming and gorgeous, much like Diagrate's 16th century marble. And while we're on the subject of Diagrate's Renaissance masterpiece in Milan, it turns out none other than our old friend and fellow atheist Mark Twain gazed upon it in person. And he had this to say: "The figure was that of a man without skin, with every vein, artery, muscle, every fiber and tendon and tissue of the human frame represented in minute detail. It looked natural because somehow it looked as if it were in pain. A skinned man would be likely to look that way unless his attention was occupied with some other matter. It was a hideous thing, and yet there was a fascination about it somehow. I am very sorry I saw it, because I shall always see it now. I shall dream of it sometimes. I shall dream that it is resting its corded arms on the bedhead and looking down on me with its dead eyes. I shall dream that it is stretched between the sheets with me and touching me with its exposed muscles and its stringy cold legs. It's hard to forget repulsive things." He had a way with words, didn't he?
Yeah, wait till he sees Hellraiser 2.
Well, maybe we're so desensitized to gruesomeness because of things like that.
Right.
I think that's probably true.
But, he had a way with words like most Marks do, of course. But what about the relics of Saint Bartholomew the Apostle? I know everyone is begging not to know. One claim is that his body, in whatever state, was given to the city of Daras in what is now Turkey by the Byzantine Emperor Anastasius Decorus in the 6th century CE. Frankfurt Cathedral claims to have a bit of his skull, which is nice. And Canterbury Cathedral in England, to this day, venerates a piece of necrotic jerky they claim to be his arm.
Oh, wow.
Note to would-be Catholic saints, your quartering and dismembering will not likely end at the time of death. Be warned.
Right?
Lipari, a tiny island off Sicily, claims to have many of his relics in the aptly named Cathedral of Saint Bartholomew the Apostle, as was legended by Gregory of Tours. He claimed that sometime in the 6th century, Bartholomew's entire skinless body washed up on the island's shore. How they know it was him, who can say? Several sturdy men from the town were summoned to carry it to the cathedral, but were unable to lift him. Yet, when some small children of innocent age tried to lift his by then 400-year-old waterlogged corpse, they did so with ease. Thus demonstrating the first of Bartholomew's weight-based miracles. For reasons unknown, the deceased saint liked teaching life lessons through bizarre feats of heaviness and lightness. It was his thing. So
that is the most horrific miracle I've ever heard of.
Yeah,
The miracle of children being able to lift a de-skinned corpse.
Yes.
Like, why would you let your children near one, let alone ask if they can lift it?
If a de-skinned corpse washes up on your beach, get a long stick and push it back out.
Exactly.
Right, dude. Some crimes are better left unsolved. It was long the habit of the good people of Lipari to take the solid silver statue out of his eponymous cathedral every August 24th, Bartholomew's feast day, and parade it about the town. On one such day, whilst processing down a hill, the statue became incredibly heavy. So much so the men bearing it had to put it down. They tried again to lift it and could not. They mustered one more go and failed. Moments later, a series of walls at the bottom of the hill collapsed. Had they proceeded as normal, they would have been killed. Heaviness saved the day. True story.
It's a miracle.
It's true.
It's a miracle of the weak Sicilians.
Dan said it, I didn't. In World War II, Mussolini's fascists were taking valuables from some churches to fund the war effort. They seized the very same silver statue from the cathedral in Lipari to melt it down. But when it was weighed, it was but a few ounces, not even worth the fuel to melt it. Miracles! Miracles don't have to make much sense to be miraculous, I guess, guys.
That's magnets. How do they work?
And as always, we love to celebrate what peoples, places, and things patron saints are the saints of, and his list is a long one. Saint Bartholomew the Apostle is the patron saint of Armenia, as we discussed. That makes sense.
Sure.
Bookbinders, butchers.
Wait, is the bookbinder thing because
Leather.
he was unbound
Leather.
himself? Oh my, gross.
Yeah. Florentine cheese and salt merchants, which is extremely specific. Several towns in Italy, several towns in the Philippines. He is also the patron saint of neurological diseases, skin diseases, plasterers, dermatology, leather tanners, leather workers, fur trappers, and twitching. He is the patron saint of the act of twitching.
Oh my God.
So,
It's just proof that no saint we ever make up is as silly as saints.
If we had all day on Sunday, we couldn't do it. So these early Catholic horror movies carved in stone kind of encapsulate why I find religion so fascinating. It's kind of equal parts horrible and wonderful, or maybe like 8 parts horrible and 2 parts wonderful. I don't know. But there's some madly weird and colorful shit mixed in with all the racism, the misogyny, the genocide, and the boredom. So religion's a good thing on balance, is what I'm saying, guys.
That's kind of the theme of our show, for sure.
But I'm off the show. So anyway, to conclude, Catholics.
Oh my God, Catholic. Can we just say Catholics are gross? Like they've had hundreds of years to get this right, thousands of years to get this right, and they've just gotten weirder and grosser.
I know I have so many Catholic friends, and I adore them, and they're some of the best people I know. And I just look at them sometimes, and I'm like, do you ever think about this thing?
Yeah.
Do you ever just kind of take a step back and go, shit?
Yeah.
And when I bring up things like transubstantiation and blood drinking and stuff, they're like,
Right.
What are you going to do?
What are you going to do? The songs are good.
Yeah.
So there you go.
All right.
So that's
Well,
Saint
there you go.
Bartholomew, everybody. If you have a Twitch, you're covered.
It's just, you're in good hands.
All right.
All right. Let's move on.